again, lessons not to forget in the process, that really the networks are producing knowledge. So we have an area of discussion on SDGs we will be concerned with in economic interest and national economic interest. But at the same time, a huge amount of knowledge will be provided through this process. And that's exactly what the networks will do. And that was and is the objective of this launch of the Sustainable Solution Network, which is basically trying to gather academic people, think tanks, private sector, in sharing their experience of solutions for sustainability. And then on method, I think we have to reconsider that learning processes are really the key process to build the trust that is really lacking at global level. I think we have to build these SDGs to focus more on interaction than on specific objectives. Monitoring, as it was said before, is a powerful empowerment tool for societies to look at what their governments are doing, but as well to really recognize the impacts of human activity and actions. I think there is really at stake the redefinition of the mandate of the global institutions. And you may have seen that World Bank, OECD, FAO, many global institutions, and even IMF would like to have really a green perspective for their own development. But these strategies have to be assessed beyond rhetorics, and I think that would be a challenge for the UN system as a whole. And then cooperation, collective action should be focused on the way to reach national objectives, to help people, to help the society to reach their own objectives they would have been discussing meanwhile. So, and in a way, we should look beyond the sort of these government versus networks, and really dedicate ourselves in creating a dialectic between societies and leaders. Sustainability could be a global and is potentially a global value, despite perception of national interest. And I think that's a way, if civil society dialogues are developed, if we even invent methodologies, there are numbers offered by different actors these days, can really reveal preferences that go beyond government postures. I think we would have really made a progress for these SDGs to begin really to be a way for going out of this crisis of sustainability. That's why the main message I wanted to share with you.
Thank you, Lawrence, for your insightful and very stimulating ideas about SDGs and related issues. If you have any clarification questions, I'd like to take it now. There's one, Joita. Maybe you can push the button.
I really enjoyed this presentation and made a large number of notes. Victor, I have a question for you. Do you think that in some ways, in order to support the concept of adaptive governance, maybe the concept of good governance has been lacking too much? And the reason why I'm saying that is that if you look at the bulk of the definitions of good governance, the rule of law is not meant to be top down. Transparency can help even create adaptive governance. I think the only one where you might have a problem is with the criteria of efficiency, which is not universally considered a part of good governance. It falls under the World Bank definition. The economists use that particular one as part of good governance. But if you look at the other definitions, efficiency gets a much lower component. And I think optimal management, I don't see that as, when I hear you talk about what you see as good governance, people are talking about something like integrated resource management, where very top-down, optimal. So I don't know whether there is that much distinction between those two concepts as you create. And I would welcome your views on that. And I want to go back to something that Lawrence said, which was about interactions versus targets. And is there a fear that maybe we won't be able to then prioritize issues such as basic needs? And on the other hand, maybe the world is not willing to prioritize that. I understand that, but we glossed over the basic needs aspect of the targets. And I was interested in knowing what your views were on that.
Okay, Victor,
yes, just very briefly, I think I agree with you on a conceptual level. I think that there is some sort of interesting, might be synergies between adaptive and good governance. But my take on this, and I might be wrong, and I'd be happy to discuss it. I mean, if you look at the nations that score high on good governance, those are also the countries that support subsidies for monocultures, agriculture, that support a lot of the planning thinking in terms of ecosystem stewardship, etc., etc. So I'm afraid that that sort of thinking will trickle into the discussion about SDGs, and just assuming that good governance would lead to also adaptive, right? But I think that's an issue for us as a community to explore closer, because those two communities haven't really communicated with each other, and we don't have the empirical evidence to link these two.
It's a very substantive comment. And certainly later on in the global discussion we could come back to many of your points. I feel that I would agree that this separation between these views on domestic governance, what is called good governance, which is a set of recipes for, and of course, the enforcement of the law and a number of criteria, creates sort of a distinction between how you should behave as a nation in the global community and how the rule of law should apply to your own country. And this separation, I think, at that stage is no longer not only useful, but really creates intellectual confusion and even political confusion as well. So that should be said. I think we should break this distinction. We should break in the discussion, even within the agencies who are deploying this type of concept, the idea that you cannot just adjust to your idea of governance depending on the issues. But I think I will think more about your point. My view on the interaction versus targets is, I will take the example of climate, which I think I know a little better. When I think about the preparation of 2050, which is a global governance issue and global commitments, of course, and I think many of us would bet that the best way to do so is to try to define in each country what could be a reasonable and acceptable pathway for